All right, so I'm Jake. I run the Salesforce Saturday session here out of Milwaukee. I also, just so you know who I am, been in the Salesforce ecosystem for over 10 years. Um, and then I run it, so like I said before, I run a Salesforce developer group out of Milwaukee here. I'm a four-time Salesforce MVP, and I currently work at Penrod Software as a consultant, specializing in just about all the clouds. So if you have questions, we can always talk about those in the future as well. But today's session is all about the preparing for the admin test. We're looking at the sales and marketing applications portion of the test. It makes up 12% of the test. And it's really just understanding the basic sales functionality. How does sales work out of Salesforce? What are the objects that we use? What are the tools that we can use within Salesforce to make the sales team more efficient and effective? So in the test, they'll give you scenarios, and you'll have to identify the capabilities and implications of the sales process. So we're going to talk about sales process, opportunities, path, forecast. Like what happens if you modify things? How do you set those things up? Those are really the basic questions you need to know for that portion of the test. Also, another given scenario, apply appropriate sales productivity features using opportunity tools. So we talk about dashboards, lead scoring, Einstein opportunity scoring, the homepage assistance. We'll touch on those different things as well. And then describe the capabilities of lead automation tools and campaign management. So we'll talk about leads, lead convert, lead assignment rules, campaign members. I throw in web delete in there as well, and also auto response rules, because even though they're not colored in here, I've seen those types of questions on the test before. I have had my admin cert for over 10 years now, so a lot of things have changed since then, but I do occasionally go take the prep certification just to see what types of questions are in there. I also help write test questions for some of the tests here, so I have an idea what's going on. So one of the first things we're talking about here is how to enable Sales Cloud Console user permissions. So within Salesforce, if you want to make a user a sales user, you can give them the sales user checkbox here, but this gives you access to product features and product pilot features. This is really, if you have product, this arrow should actually be pointing at the sales console user here, which gives you access to the console. So by default, console, that's an app-based product. The sales console is just it's like the service console. It's just a little bit more of a dynamic interface, so you can have multiple tabs open within multiple tabs versus just the standard layout that you have there. So sales console user is how we enable that. And then and then the sales user, that's more or less for product functionality. If you were to have integrations with product, and then if you're using Marketing Cloud, there's not a permission set for that one, but there's connectivity between the two systems involved for that as well. But within Salesforce, there's two schools of thought for how to set up the people that you talk to. There's business accounts and contacts. This is the more traditional model that Salesforce has offered us. This is where it's your basic business accounting of contacts. So your account is the company that you're working with, whereas the contacts, those are the people that work at that company. So think of this as more a corporation model. So if you're selling to corporation or business to business, business accounts and contacts are your preferred method of doing those types of things. Now, let's say you're trying to sell to individuals. You can do business accounts and contacts. It doesn't work as well. I've done that in the past. But you can also enable person accounts. Person accounts is a feature that has to be enabled within Salesforce. But essentially, it's a mashup of your accounts and contacts. And it's great if you're doing a business to consumer type of model. So on the test, there are questions based on what kind of model should you set up. If you're selling business to business, it's the business account. If you're selling business to person, you want to set person accounts, or business to individual. Always, if they're talking about a single entity that we're just selling to, and it's not a corporation, you're going to want to be thinking about person accounts being enabled for that org. And essentially, person accounts work like account and contacts. So wherever there's a lookup field to an account, person accounts would show. Wherever there's a lookup field to a contact, person accounts will show. On the actual person account record, there's fields on there that basically tell you Depending on which record you're selecting, there's contact IDs on there. There's also account IDs, so you can use them interchangeably for those two lookups. You see a lot of times you see person accounts enabled for the requirement for the health cloud, financial cloud, some of those more direct to consumer industries. A lot of times person accounts will be enabled for those types of industries because it makes more sense. But like I said on the test, they're not going to go into that much detail. It's going to be more of, they're going to say if our primary focus is with corporations that have people that work for them, what type of model should we set up? And we're going to be talking about standard accounts and contacts. If they're talking about marketing or communicating with people who are just individuals, we're going to be thinking person accounts for that part there. So in order to enable person accounts, first you don't have to have Salesforce turn it on anymore, but you do need to create a record type. You say your order defaults or contacts is controlled by parent, and you also allow for customer support to enable person accounts in the account segment. So once you enable that, you can have person accounts enabled in your org, and then you can use that. So it's not something that you can easily do right away, but you can turn it on for yourself. One thing with person accounts is once you enable it, you can't disable it in your org. You can choose not to use it, but once you've enabled that functionality is in your org and it's there forever. So I always say, if you're going to be enabling person accounts, do it in the sandbox first. Make sure it's everything you want and like. Get it configured, and then do it in production. That way, if it's something you don't want to do or it's too complicated, you don't want to have that process in production. It'll only be in that sandbox, and you can always refresh your sandbox, and then it will go away. So, just a word of advice: always enable that in a sandbox first. There are questions on the test around enable person count, so you need to do this information. One of the other things is set up in a sandbox first. That's just generally a best practice to do there. So like I was saying, once a person count is on, they're on. You can't turn it out. You can also, like I said, try it out in a sandbox first. All right, so far we've talked about accounts and contacts. So we're going to talk about the other person object within Salesforce, which is the leads. These are your future accounts and contacts or person accounts. What's really cool about leads is it allows you to vet your potential prospects. So a lot of times when we're doing marketing initiatives, we'll work with leads because we're trying to figure out if they're a potential candidate for us. Are they going to work for? Are they going to be a good deal for us? Does what we're offering make sense for them to purchase that type of deal? And with leads, we have the ability to assign them to an individual or a user or a queue. With a queue is just a collection of users. So a lot of times as leads come in, they'll be assigned to a queue, and then people will work with that queue to pull the leads out of that queue so that they can work them. So there might be like a sales queue, and then all the sales members are part of that queue, so they can go find all those leads that are in that queue. And then with there's also lead scoring on leads. So based on criteria, well, actually based on Einstein lead scoring, it figures out a good lead score for you. That lead score then pushed down onto the lead there, so you can see the kind of like the rating of that particular lead. And we'll get to that in a minute here. So with Einstein lead scoring, this is something you do have to set up and enable. So from your setup menu, go to the assisted setup underneath Einstein sales, and then you want to set up Einstein lead scoring here. You enable it, and then the checkbox turns green. Then you're able to utilize the functionality of Einstein lead scoring in your org. So once you turn that on, you can add Einstein lead scoring to your list views. So you can see here, this is a picture here. We have the different leads here with their lead scores. And then there's also some insights in here as well. So the top positives for this particular one are like, what are the, depending on the typical fields that you fill out and the values, they're going to go ahead and say, like, they're going to weigh them. So as the process goes through and keeps evaluating the records, it's going to see which types of fields get populated and what those values are. And if they match those types of values of conversion, they can give you a idea of why that lead score is higher versus why it's lower. And it's typically based on your previous record usage. All right. So to view Einstein lead scoring, just remember you can add it to this view. So you can also add it to the Lightning page layout. You do need to make sure users have permissions for this. So there's a Einstein lead scoring permission that you have to give to your users. They don't have that permission. They won't see those values. They won't see the component on the Lightning page. So just make sure you send those things out. And here is the permission I was just talking about. So it's called Sales Cloud Einstein. Check that box and they get access to all the Einstein features that are there. So what is Einstein lead scoring? It uses data and machine learning, kind of what I was just talking about before. It looks at your past leads for details for converting. Then Einstein gives you the lead score based on your lead conversion pattern. So depending on how you convert things, it's going to figure out what are your typical routes of converting things. And if they meet those categories, they're going to give it a higher score versus not, then it'd be a lower score. So the higher the score, the more likely you are to convert that lead. All right, we're going to hop on over to lead mapping. So when you have a lead and let's say they are a good candidate for you and you want to convert them, we take the lead and we convert it to an account contact, and we can also create an opportunity for that particular lead at that point. But when we have a lead mapping, basically what this means is that when we do that conversion, we can map the fields from one point to the next point. By default, Salesforce has lead mapping already set up for most of your objects. This is just a real small sample of that default mapping. But the address field from the lead goes to the account billing address. If you're doing a person account, it goes to the mailing address and billing address. And the address also goes to the contact mailing address. So these are all predefined fields on those objects. If you're to do the conversion, it's going to take those values in the lead and map them to the according one. So this is your default lead mapping. On the next side here, we can actually set up custom lead mapping. So if you're creating those custom fields on your lead and you want to map them over to either the account, contact, or opportunity, you can do that. So from your, if you go to your lead and you go to custom fields there and you click the map lead fields button here, you'll get a page that looks like this. From here, you can take any of your custom fields that you've created and then assign them to the values of either the account, contact, or opportunity. As a reminder, they do need to be the same data type. So text needs to go to text. Format field text can actually go to a text field on another object if need be. But dates need to go to dates. So all the data types need to match up. The other thing is if you have a field that's in the lead and you need to send it to the account, contact, and opportunity, you can send it to more than one object at a time. So if let's say average here, I had the same field average on accounts and I had it on my contact and my opportunity, I could pass that same value to all three records on the conversion. So all three records will get that. One other thing we do lead mapping is that when you do this, when you actually convert the lead, you can convert the lead to an existing account. You can convert the lead to an existing contact. You cannot convert it to an existing opportunity. So that's just another thing to point out there. So a lead can be converted to account, contact, and they can create, when you convert a lead, you can create account, contact, and opportunity. You can map a lead to an existing account, create a new contact, create an opportunity. You can map to an existing account, contact, and create a new opportunity, or you can just map to the account and contact when you do the conversion. So when you do the conversion, you can specify how you want that to happen. And there's a button on the Lightning page there that does it. It's pretty straightforward. You select the existing records if they are. If not, it just creates everything net new for you, and it will follow that mapping. All right, so second, lead assignment rules. So with lead assignment rules, you're allowed to have one active process, but one active process can have multiple rule entries. And what lead assignment rules do is that when a lead comes in, either through web to lead or email, well, you can set up email lead, but it's not very easy. But any outside application, or even if it's internal, you create a lead and you click use assign active, use the active assignment rules. It will based on the criteria of that lead, assign it to the proper person or queue. So right now I have a some rules set up here. So I have one assignment rule with multiple rule entries, and you specify the criteria, and then you can specify who that leads can be assigned to. You can also specify to send an email to the individual, so you can say, hey, a new lead has been assigned to you. That's just an option for you. When you're building out a lead assignment rules, always put your most restrictive criteria at the top and your least restrictive criteria at the bottom. And that is because if you put your least restrictive at top, it's going to match more on that right away because it follows the order here. It looks down, it goes on all the order. So how many rule entries you have, it's going to follow that process. And if it matches one that's really vague up front, that's what's always going to hit. So you have something that's very, very specific, put it towards the top of your assignment rules so that it can be caught by your rules. Otherwise, it'll never be a hit because it doesn't evaluate the most criteria. It goes on the order. So if it finds it right away, that's what it's going to be assigned to. So that's another tip for the tester. Sometimes they'll say, why are my lead assignments working? And it is because they're being assigned to the assignment rules are too vague up top, and you have the more restrictive ones at the bottom. All right. Our next topic here is web delete. So web delete is a really cool feature that Salesforce offers. You do need to turn this on, but basically, with a web delete, it makes a lead in Salesforce from a web form. So what you'll do here is you'll select the fields from your lead that you want, and you put them all here, and then you can select reCAPTCHA if you want. But then you click generate, and then this provides a bunch of raw HTML. So it's just a basic HTML form with all the fields with a submit button on there. You take that form, you fill it out, and you hit submit. It will create a lead in that org. So you can set this up for a sandbox. You can set this up for production. The different paths lead to different orgs, but in the actual code, it tells you which org it's going to. And with web delete, you can also add campaign in here, and also add when you create a web lead from the web delete, you can also add it to an existing campaign. We'll get into campaigns a little bit later, but just wanted to call that out there. With web delete, like I said, there's a limit of 500 per day that get auto created. So every day you have up to 500 that will just automatically be created in Salesforce. Anything above that gets queued up, so you can get up to 5,000 in the queue. So if you go to like a trade show and typically your volume was only 200 a day, but you go to a trade show and people are filling your form, you may go over that limit. Anything over that limit, it would capture in that queue, and then that list would be emailed to the admin, and then they can insert those leads after the fact. So they won't be auto-created, but you can still at least capture them. Anything above that 5,000 limit, it will be lost. So we only recommend using this functionality if you truly know that what your limits are going to be. For most companies, that's fine. Other companies are like, no, we know we'll have more than 500 a day, or in a particular day they may have something else set up. We recommend doing it like a direct API if you want auto created in the org, or utilizing some other tool to capture those leads and then do an insert in Salesforce later on. All right. So if you're using web delete, you probably may want to create an auto response. So based on the criteria of the lead, we can create an auto response rule. So if a lead comes in through with web delete, we can respond to that person providing the provided email address with lead auto response rules. So much like the lead assignment rules, auto response rules, you can only have one active process, but you can have multiple rule entries. We're just actually looking at one of the entries right here. And you can specify the sort order, the fields that you want there, and then the criteria. And then based on that criteria, it's going to send an email based on a template. So if you are going to set up lead auto response rules, you need to set up an organizational-wide email address. So from the org there, if you don't see one here, you can click this little link here, and then it'll take you to a page where you set up a organizational-wide email address. This means that the email address that you put in here, the organizational-wide email address, has been a verified email address, and then you can send emails from that address. So if it's going to send out an email, and it's going to be from that organizational-wide email address. But on the auto-response rule, so you select the organizational-wide email address, then you can also select the template that you want to send. So depending on the criteria of the lead, you may have different templates that you want to respond back to. Sometimes it's very generic and says, hey, we got your lead, we'll get in touch with you. Other times like, hey, we got your lead, we get your request, here's more information about the products that you've asked about. So you can customize some of your auto response rules and then still have your sales people follow up with them after the fact. We're gonna make our way over to opportunities now. So far we talked about leads, accounts, contacts. You touched on opportunities a little bit here. Opportunities is the money maker, I guess you would call, of the objects. So leads are your potential opportunities. Accounts and contacts is just your information about the people and companies that you're potentially doing business with. The opportunity is actually tracking that process of where are you at in your sales cycle to actually close that deal. So within a org, you can set up a sales process. So sales process you use with record types. If you don't use record types, your opportunity pick list values here are all your values. But as soon as you set up a record type, you do need to set up a sales process. A sales process just dictates what values from your opportunity stages, pick list values, are part of that process. In the event that you have two different unique sales cycles in your org, or you're selling two different types of products or two types of different services, or you sell products and services and they follow different sales cycles, you may need to set up record types of sales processes. Because you know not all the stages are going to be qualified. So maybe a product, you have 5 cycles, 5 stages, and on a services you only have 4. Maybe if they're not the same, those 4 aren't the same as the 5 there. We can set up 2 different unique paths for them to follow, or 2 different sales processes. So we put all the values in our opportunity stages, pick list value here, and then we create a sales process and select which ones we want. As a reminder, you always need a closed option, which I don't have selected yet, so I'd have to select this closed one option, put in here my selected values. You always need a closed option, and we always recommend having 2 closed options, one for closed won and one for closed lost. I actually have closed lost right here, so we need to have another one because right now we can't win these deals, so we need to put closed won in there. The other values in here, we have our different stages here. We have our different types and our probabilities and our forecast categories. This comes into play when we talk about forecasting. Type just means it's open versus closed or closed off. The pipeline forecast category, they're all in pipeline here. There are additional stages, which we'll get into a little bit here. But the different stages can also, they affect where the records sit on the forecasting when you actually do that. But we set up our sales process with the record types. We select the stages we want for those things, and then we can have our 2 unique sales processes. When we create the record, when we create a product opportunity, it'll follow the product process, and if we create a services opportunity, it'll follow that services opportunity process as well. So when we create a opportunity, we can create different sales stages. So like I said before, we have our stage there. We have the different types. We have open, closed won, closed lost. So those are your 3 types here. The other thing over here is our probability. Probability just has to do with how likely is the opportunity going to close. The higher, the closer it is to 100%, the more likely it is to be closed. But we have our forecast categories. Admitted is your first one here. Admitted means that it is not part of that forecast anymore. So it won't be part of in any forecast. Pipeline means it's in your pipeline. Forecast, best case means that it's in your best case pipeline. Committed means that you're committing it to that particular deal, and then closed means that's more or less your one. So typically how these work, closed won works is tied to closed. Closed lost is tied to admitted, because typically you don't want to admit your loss. You don't want to have your lost deals in your forecast because it's lost, so it doesn't make sense to keep them in there. So we'll get into forecasting in a minute here, but just want to, when you set up an opportunity stage, these are all the values you need to select and think about. Probability, like I said, is the stages that are more likely. So if we go back a page here, and we look at the probability here. So like negotiating review, we have sitting at 90%. So that means that we're towards the end of the sales cycle. If we're negotiating a review in the contract, it means we're pretty dang close. Whereas if we're in the very beginning here, prospecting, and we're doing qualification, we're at 10% because we think there's a potential here, but we're not sure. And as we go through the sales cycle here, we can add we'll add additional probability to figure out where we're at. So that's how we set up opportunities in their stages. Now we'll get into forecasting. So if you want to use forecasting, you do have to turn it on. And if you're going to have forecasting, it can be based on opportunity or opportunity products. So when you create an opportunity, you can also add opportunity products to it if you need to be. We'll actually talk about that in a minute, but it can be based on opportunity or opportunity product. And then we can also be based on amount or quantity. So sometimes we care about the amount of the opportunity, whereas like what's the dollar value? But if we're doing opportunity products, you may care about what's the quantity. Are we selling 5 units or are we selling 500 units? What is our forecast for the number of units that we're selling? Because that might be a bigger tell of what's going on. You can always include your date. So what date range you want to pull from. We can set up hierarchy. When we say what we mean by hierarchy is that we can follow the role hierarchy within the Salesforce org there, and based on that, certain managers will be able to view and edit other people's forecasts as well. You can actually roll those forecasts up as well. Maybe within your org, you can have up to 4 types of forecasts, so you can create 4 different forecasts, and then you can just go from there. So with forecasting, you can enable adjustments. What that means is that you can report directly off of what the opportunities are stating, or you can enable adjustments saying, actually, I think this deal is going to close for $500 more. It's going to be close for $300 less. Or you can also adjust the dates for those related opportunities. So you can you can adjust things and adjust your forecast, because maybe John always oversells things, and when the deal sells, he's always under. But so you can adjust the forecast accordingly, so it's more realistic of actually what's potentially going to happen. You can manage your forecast roll-up, so you can choose how the forecast categories are organized in columns in the forecast grid. You can choose default date ranges, so you can just what's the date range you want to show the information from. And you can also show quotas if you have that enabled as well. For the admin test, you don't have to know about that too much, but I'd like to point it out just in case you see a question on it, so you're not just like, that's foreign to me, but I've only ever seen these top 3 ones show up on there. All right, let's talk about path. Back in the day, this used to be called sales path because path was only available for opportunities. It's now available for just about every object. But basically, it's guidance for your users based on the record type and the pick list value. Most likely, if you're setting it up for opportunities, it's going to be whatever the record type you want, and then the pick list value is going to be your stage. So it's going to be that sales process for that particular record. You can only have 1 record type per path. So if I create a path for my product record type, I can't create another path for my product record type. So I can only have 1 of these set up per record type, which makes sense because you're going to put this on your landing page layout, and then you're going to follow the steps. Within here, we have our different stages that are there, and then we can add fields to our different stages, and we can also add a guidance for success. So we can add the 5 fields here, and we can, for each one, they can be different fields, and then for our guidance for success for each stage value that they select, provide different guidance for success for them to basically say, for here, we need to do these things, and we're in needs analysis, we need to do these things. So you can just give your end users a little bit of direction of what they have to be doing or their next steps for that particular path. So on a path, if you enable this, if you actually have path set up, you can actually hover over the individual stages, and I'll tell you how many days it's been in that particular stage, which is kind of cool. But you only get to see this in Lightning. You can't. This doesn't report to any reports or anything like that. You only get to see this information in a Lightning. So this is kind of just a little cool thing. So if you want to know how long has your opportunity been in what particular stage, you can just hover over and it'll tell you that information. All right. So when we create an opportunity, we sometimes have the need to add contact roles. Contact roles are people that are associated to that particular opportunity. And those people that are associated to that opportunity could be members of the company that you're trying to work the deal with. So you might have a bunch of people listed on there. There could be also, you can add internal people if need be to that. You can also add people from other corporations. So let's say there is and if we're looking at down here, we have our 2 contact roles. We have a decision maker here, and we have another we have another influencer here from both. They're both Get Cloudy Consulting, but then we also have Lars here from Canada, and they are just an influencer as well. So the deal here is most likely for Get Cloudy Consulting, but the Canadian branch here is also trying to influence them. Maybe they already are on board with Salesforce and or whatever the tool or whatever they're selling here, and they're trying to get them the other part here involved. So they're influencing. When you set up a contact role, you can select them as their role decision. So like decision maker and influencer. So you can actually have detractors in there. So maybe Alan here, maybe he really isn't much of an influencer. He's more of a detractor. Maybe you want to flag that so you know who's going to be potential blockers for you in your org. You can customize this role list as well to your own needs. These are just ones that are there by default. And you can also select who is the primary contact role. Currently, there is none selected for this opportunity that we'll be looking at, but you could say most likely if the decision maker is most likely your primary. That just means that that's the main person that we want to always make sure we're including on our sales process. When you convert a lead, and if you create a opportunity for that lead, whatever record that contact that gets created for it, will automatically be added as a contact role for you. So just a little note for you there. That I've seen it come up in the test every now and then, but when you convert a lead and you create an opportunity, that lead that was converted, that contact will always be added as a contact role for you as well. The other thing is we have our opportunity team. So we have our back here, we have our contact roles. So these are people that we're working with. These are the people that we're working at different corporations. This is our internal team. We can set up internal users. These are what we use for our internal team. We can set up all our different members that are in there. We can basically, they're there to help with the deal. They're there to help out, make sure that everything's there. This is a feature that must be turned on, and you should define the roles that they're going to have. You can use the standard ones out of the box, but I always recommend customizing that as well because you can. And then with opportunity teams, you can either have a set defined team. So every time I create an opportunity, my opportunity team always gets added to me, or I can also do ad hoc. So maybe on this particular deal, I need my sales manager and a sales rep, and maybe another one I need all 3 of the members on that deal. So I can either have my default team automatically get added to every single opportunity because I know I need all their help, or in particular instances, I can specify which ones I want to show up for those particular ones. So like I said, we can add e-members. We can, on the user screen here, we can add your team members. So we can say automatically add my default opportunity team there, or we can update the opportunity teams with the members that I want. So I come in here, select the users I want. I specify the access they get to the opportunity. So maybe I can only grant read access. I can also grant read write access to those, and then I specify their role. Can be a very handy tool when you need help on your deals there. All right, now I'm going to transition over to products and price books. The reason why we talk about this is because if you're going to create a opportunity, you can add opportunity products, reference products and price books. So products and price books, this is what's being sold. These are your services and tangible items. So we can have all the different products there. So we need to be able to use price books. So that's something you have to enable for users to use, but just about every profile has it enabled by default. A price book is a collection of products and pricing. So you can have more than one price book in your org. And you like that price book can have a collection of your products and pricing. If you have price book entries, basically that's all that is your collection of products. So you have a price book entry, and the price book entry is linked a product to a price book, and it also gives the price. So the price book entry says that this appliance is part of the standard price book, and this is the price. So this right here is a price book entry right here. Products. So if you create a product, so if you have more than one price book, I can add the same product to multiple price books just fine. But I can't have the same product within the same product price book more than once with the same currency. So let's say this price book here I had my standard one. I have appliance here for $1,000 US. I can add another appliance in here with a different currency of it. I can say instead of $1,000 US, it's 900 pounds. I could do something of that nature to add the same product to the same price book. Most people, when they create price books, it's single currencies for that single price book. They don't cross, but occasionally you may need to do that. So like I said, you can have multiple price books with the same product in all those price books, and they can actually be the same currency because it doesn't matter because it's a different price book. But within a single price book, a product and currency can only be there once with the same currency. So I can, like I said, add appliance here twice with a different currency, and that's fine. So on the opportunity, if you're going to add products to an opportunity, or opportunity products as they're sometimes called, we first on the opportunity, we have to set the price book on the opportunity. So there's a field that says which price book do you want to use. You can only have one price book per app for opportunity. So when I create a opportunity, I select the price book. It's giving me the price book that I've selected, and then all the products that are available on that price book are going to be available for that opportunity. If you have multi-currency enabled, both the price book and the currency must match. So if on my opportunity, if I select a price book and a currency, and I select a price book doesn't have any products that match the same currency, I won't have any products in there. And that is a potential test question for admin, and also Sales Cloud if you're interested in that as well. But once products are added, the amount field can no longer be edited. So on the opportunity, there is an amount field. By default, if you have no products, you can customize. You can put that amount field in. You can put whatever you want in. As soon as you add products, it's always going to be the sum of the total fields of the products. So if I add 3 products and the total for each one is $100, my amount field is now $100. I can't change that amount field on the opportunity. I have to go to opportunity product lines and change those values to then control the price book, to control the amount field on the opportunity. Some opportunity settings, you can always turn on prompt users to add products to opportunities if you're going to use in that. And you can also, when users add a product to an opportunity, you can also auto insert the quantity one, because when you ever add products, you also need to enter the quantity. If by default most of your quantities are going to be 1, that's a great option to put in there. That way, there's always going to be an option there. It's not going to prompt you to do that. So it's a real quick setting to enable it to help save time for you later on. All right. So from opportunities, we're going to create a different object called quotes. So quotes are a way where we can create multiple iterations of a potential sale for a opportunity. So an opportunity can have multiple quotes tied to it. Only one of those quotes can be the winning quote. But with quotes, this is something that you need to turn on. It's not on by default. It's a quick turn on. They can enable quotes. Yep, I want to use it. And then quotes always need to be tied to an opportunity. So you can't create a quote by itself. It'll always be tied to an opportunity. You can have many quotes tied to one opportunity, but you can't have a quote tied to nothing. And it's very common that you'd have a single opportunity with multiple quotes on it, because maybe they want to know the pricing for XYZ, and then they also want to know the pricing for ABC, and then they also want to know the pricing for 1, 2, 3. So different product combinations that they may have, you can have different quotes for those things. And then you can basically, once they say, I want quote A, you can sync that quote and you can start that sync. And when you do that sync, certain fields in the quote and quote lines will sync to opportunity products. So the close date, some of those things, the amount fields is going to sync those values. Any of the opportunity products on the opportunity are going to get wiped out, and the quote products on the quote will be now added to your opportunity. So I'll keep all that stuff in sync for you. So it's really a nice, cool feature. And then let's say that particular quote is no longer the one that's winning. You can stop that sync, and then you can start a sync with another one. Or if you just go to the one that's the winning one, just click start sync, it's going to stop the sync with the existing one, and then take the values from the new quote and put them back on the opportunity. So you can easily go from one to the other. That will help with forecasting and things of that nature down the line as well. If there's multiple quotes on an opportunity, you can say which one's the winning one, and just work the quote from there. Quote is one of the only standard objects that has a built-in template that you can actually export. So you can build it's basically only the object that have a built-in template. Like I said, you can make a template. It can only reference fields on the quote, account, opportunity, contact, your organ users. And you can also add just random text fields for free text. So you can build your own quote template there that actually export out to send to your customers with the quote object. But like I said, this is the only standard object that has a template builder in there, so you can utilize it so that if you need to. Contracts may show up on the test here. Basically, contracts are a way where we can link it to accounts and or an op. It basically states the terms of deals. You can have set contract prices for future orders. It does have an active status. So on a contract, I can have my statuses there. I can add products to my contract so I know what particular products are part of this contract. And then it simply states the deals. I've seen a lot of times people will take a contract that has contract products in there and create orders off of these particular ones. But orders aren't part of the test, so I really don't cover that part here. All right, let's move into campaigns. So this is more of the marketing initiative here, kind of. So within Salesforce, we have the ability to create campaigns. Campaigns are your marketing initiatives here. This is where we can track things like advertisements, solicitations, emails, events, cold calling things. You can use campaigns for just about anything that you want to do for. You can be used to see how effective an effort was. You can track costs. You can link your opportunities to a campaign. So if I have leads and I convert them, and they're part of a campaign, they can be tied to there. But your target audience or your prospects for your campaign, these are your leads, contacts, and person accounts. So the people objects within Salesforce. What we do is we tie those people to campaign members, which we'll talk about in 1 second here. But with campaigns, we actually have the ability to build a hierarchy. So we can link different campaigns together. So maybe I have a campaign here called like we're going to sell a new product, and then I have a product launch. And part of my product launch is I have an email that I want to send out to people. Maybe I have a demo event and have a video overview. These will all be different campaigns. So these three will roll up to my product launch, and then product launch will roll up to this, and then same thing over here. These two roll up to this one up here. So my overall new product sell would tell me my total results from all the campaigns in here. My product launch will tell me what the results of all of these three here, and my individual ones would tell me the results of the individual one. So maybe my new sell product launch, no, I did really well in here, but as I look diving down to here in my different campaigns, I can see that maybe the email and the demo event did pretty well, but my video overview wasn't as highly received. I didn't get many opportunities out of that process, so it doesn't make sense to maybe do those types of things in the future. So I can analyze the different areas that I'm doing within my overall campaign to see which parts are effective and which parts aren't. When it comes to campaigns, there are three objects that are related to campaigns. You can relate campaigns to campaigns, you can relate campaign members to campaigns, and you also relate opportunities to campaigns. This as well as types of questions that may come on the test where they just want to know, do you know all the different object relationships that show up for campaigns? I will note that if you want to create a campaign, there is a permission you need to have. So if you have the create permission on your profile, that's great. You you still need the marketing user checkbox on your user check in order to create a campaign. So you need both those things in sync. You will not be able to create a campaign in Salesforce. So that's just one of those little tidbits just to remind you. If you can't create a campaign, it's most likely you don't have this permission enabled on your user. All right, with campaign influence, this allows you to basically see which campaign, to get campaigns to show on opportunities, you need to turn it on. The campaign influence basically says what campaigns were influencing this particular opportunity and how much of that influence impacted the sell of that deal. So if you're going to use campaign influence, you need to send them a CRMR user or the sales user permission set license. And then also in campaign, you can have a related list of all the opportunities that have been tied to this campaign. So if you enable this functionality, you can go to an campaign, see all the opportunities that are created for that particular campaign, and then on the actual opportunity, you can see which is the primary campaign, which is driving the influence of that. There is a way you can enable campaign influence to have more than one campaign provide influence for a opportunity, but the opportunity can only have one primary campaign influencer. Typically, that's the one that the campaign that was the lead that was converted. That's typically the one that would be your main campaign. Wherever the campaign that lead was tied to is the campaign primary influencer on the opportunity. So back to campaigns. When we create a campaign, we need to add members or our prospects. So the campaign members, they are tied to your campaign, and then the other portion of that is either tied to a lead contact or a person account. The person account actually goes through the contacts object here. So if you ever need to add campaign members, you can either add leads, that's going to pull from your leads. If you add contacts, it pull from your contact list. It will also show your person accounts in this add contacts here. So this is how you would get all your leads added to there. You can also go to the list view of a lead or contact, select which records you want, and then there's a add campaign, and then you can select which campaign you'd want those added to. So 2 ways to add campaign members. I typically show this view because this is the view that most people will try to do. In practice, it's actually the other way. Most people go to the list views where they have potential list views built up already. They can build criteria, they select which ones they want, and then they add those leads or contacts to a campaign that way. So there is a report, or there are reports and dashboards. There's actually a if you need any visual help for sales, there is a app on the App Exchange called Pre-Configure Sales Cloud Dashboard. I'll into that in 1 second here. So you can go install this app and go ahead and do it. A person account is a mashup of both account and contact. I go back to that for you real quick. So with person accounts, it's an individual, but it's an account and contact mashup. It allows you to basically look up to see an account, basically anywhere an account or contact would show up in your org. If you have a person account enabled, then that person account would show up in either one of those lookups. So it takes for lack of better terms, it takes all the information you have from your account, all the information from your contact, and matches them together in one single record. Behind the scenes, there's still 2 separate tables, but from the end user perspective, a person account, you see everything as one complete record. Does that answer your question? All right, and then the homepage assistance. So if you set up an app, you have your homepage there. The homepage assistant there tells you kind of what you need to do for the day. You can tell you your leads that are assigned, and your opportunities with overdue tasks, and your opportunities with no activity in the last 30 days, opportunities with no open activity, any overdue opportunities. You can also have up to 10 updates that are shown at a time. So it's only show you 10 updates at a time. So the assistant, it's kind of a cool tool that you can put on your homepage there to help drive the sales users to complete tasks for the things that they have to get done. All right, that is the end of the sales and marketing trainer here for admin. Do you have any questions before we end?
No, from my end, I'm good.
Cool.
Hey, Jake, thanks for this presentation. First of all, it was really helpful. And one question I have about this web to lead, where you said we can create 500 is the limit, and beyond that, it will automatically go to the queues up to 5,000. So, is this something for the big organization? You said, I mean, they should not go to this route for the web to lead
Yeah,
and
because that's
alternate.
yep. It's because web to lead only apply. It's overall for your whole org. So if you have 5 forms out there and they're all capturing, web to lead is probably, and if you're expecting all those forms to capture over that limit, web to lead is probably not the best thing for you. You can do integrations. A lot of the form tools out there also provide direct integration into Salesforce. So it basically uses your API calls instead of your web to leads. So basically, if you're going to use web to lead, try to ask and predict what your limits are going to be, because that's overall. So if I have 10 web to lead forms out there and they're all generating 100 leads per day, I'm going to be inserting a bunch of leads every day from my email that I get basically queued up. So Salesforce queues them all up for you and then sends you a email of all the leads that didn't make the cut for email to lead. Yeah, if you're going to be over that limit, I recommend just going straight to API integration. Like I said, there's app machine tools out there. A lot of the form tools, like there's Formidable. I can't think of some. Formidable does it. I think Titan does it. Form Assembly does it. There's just about all the form tools will allow you to build a form on a web page, and then you provide it your credentials for Salesforce, and then it will go ahead and create that. And I'll just go that route. So that's probably a better route for a larger org there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, on the test, I don't think they're not going to really ask you that. You just kind of have to know what the limits are. But
yeah, no, I understand. This is just for my own knowledge. I wanted to know
Yep. No
what are the
worries.
other options they have. And also another question, Jake. These meetups you schedule like once in a month, or they are there is
Yep.
a
So I run the Salesforce Saturday here in Milwaukee. That is done. I do it once a month. It's typically the second Saturday of the month that I run these.
Okay. Is there any? I'm preparing for my first admin certification, Jake. So, is there any tips or any guidance, like, or any other meetups which I can join, like this one, which was pretty helpful?
There may be some additional ones. I have the previous 2 sessions recorded, and I can share our last session in the chat there. I also do have just some admin training on my YouTube channel there. If you just look for admin certification, I kind of run through this content as well, but there's no real Q&A there. If you're looking to study, Trailhead is a great option if you haven't done that yet.
Yeah, I've been doing it. So, but as I come across some things where I have some questions, and also, Jake, is there any way? I mean, I can also reach out to you if I have any question. I can shoot an email or something to you. We can.
Yep. If you can either find me on LinkedIn, and you can ask me that way. The other option is if you're watching a particular video around that topic, you can ask in the comments there, and I'll respond there as well.
All right. Awesome. Sure, Jake. Thank you so much.
Cool. Any other comments, questions?
Jake, when would be the session on these permissions roles and the role hierarchies, all this complexity? When I'm going through the trailhead, they were a little bit confusing.
So I that session was the first session that we did there, which is, hold on, where did I go with it? So covered that section. That was the first section that we did here, and I can
Okay.
get you that link right here. So that link right there, that is your, that's the first session where I cover sharing and visibility within Salesforce.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Yeah, sharing and visibility is one of the more complicated topics, especially when it comes to how do you use one and how do you see records within Salesforce. And role
Yeah.
hierarchy grants what we call a vertical access to records.
Mhm.
So as you go up the role hierarchy, the further you go up, the more likely you have access to more records because there's more roles below you that have rolled up what they see to you.
Yes.
But, yeah. I would check out the video. There's some information in there. Also for studying, if you are studying for the test, I always recommend Focus and Force. That's always a great tool if you want practice test questions, and it's fairly cheap.
You mean focusing force? Is
Yeah,
that?
Focus and Force.
Okay.
It's if you want like practice test questions, they have
Okay.
some really good. They have a huge bank. It's like 500 questions that you can take, and they'll tell you that why the answer is wrong if you get it wrong.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So if you want some practice prep, that's where I would go for that. There's tons of admin training videos out there too, but if you're looking for a one-on-one person to talk to, you have to find the meetups. And social Saturdays are always great for this. Some of the admins do them, but I would check the community page there on in Trailhead. Sometimes you can find groups in there that are studying for tests, so you can find other like-minded individuals for practice as well. So if you actually go to the community here and you go to the groups here, you can typically find, like if you do admin.
Oh, we just need to join in that group and ask the questions. And if you post the
Yeah,
questions,
so
and
some of them are private, so you have to ask to join.
okay.
But you can do admin, maybe study. Yeah, so there's all these. There's advanced administrator. So there's you can look in here to see if there's one here, but it's a private group. Some of those groups are bigger, some are smaller, depending on what's going on. But yeah, you can join those groups as well, and just kind of go from there. Like I said, I will be completing the series, but like I said, I only do this every month, so it'll take about 6 months for me to get through all the content. So I don't want to hold you up, but also that you're supposed to have 6 months roughly of experience doing Salesforce beforehand. So it also ties well within the experience catalog of learning Salesforce as you go.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions, comments?
I don't know. The presentation is really good.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was just wondering on the objects, if you go to the fields, there's field accessibility and field. I believe there's one more thing. I just wanted to know the difference. The field accessibilities and I think field field accessibility.
Are you talking about field level security?
On fields and relationship, there's if you select a field, there's field access. It's related to security.
The view field access.
Yeah.
So that tells you by profile right now if you have access to that particular field. It doesn't count for things like permission sets. in the future, I think they're coming out with some things that will help with that, with permission sets if you enable that. But by default, I'll tell you that particular field, if it can be seen by a profile, and do they have edit access to the profile. So there's two different things there. So can they see it? So do I have readability to that field? And do I have editability to that field? They can also vary by page layout for that profile. So maybe on one particular page layout, I can see it because I have access to the field on that page layout, but it's just been listed as read only. So I only have readability on that page layout for that particular field. But maybe if I go to a different object or a different record, that's a different record type, that particular field may be editable for me because on that page layout, it's now a editable field. So that's how that particular setting works.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
Cool. All right, any other questions? If not, thanks for joining, and I hope to see you all next month.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Jake.
Jake. Let's meet on next Monday.
See you later. All right,
See you
bye.
later. Bye.